Start the recording, James.
Yep, you're good.
All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to Viceroy Sizer bi-weekly seminar. Today is our last seminar for the semester, and we have an exciting speaker. I will introduce the speaker in a second, but I know that this is the end of the semester, and so you're very busy with things. I hope you're doing well. Congratulations on making it so far. There will be these reports due and assignments to finish off and things like that, and I hope you will take care of those. And then you will have the rest of the time to complete things and have finals. Today is April 15, and it just happened to be a busy day in terms of Viceroy. So there is a virtual session and opportunity that they have nationally, including other Viceroy institutes in the country, and that's going to happen 3 to 5 p.m. And so if you watch on your mail, you probably get some information. If it happens that you don't have classes or anything else to do, consider attending that. I highly recommend it. I attended the Viceroy Symposium last month. And so the three speakers who would be speaking on that session today were great speakers. And so if you have time, I encourage you to attend those. Other than this, we are coming to the end of the semester, and so we'll have end of year Sizer kind of celebration on April 28th. That's a Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. So you did probably, you may remember when we were picking dates, that was the date that was finally chosen. It's very close to finals, but I think it will be a nice thing to just get a time to be off for an hour or so. You would not have to worry about dinner that day. We'll have pizza, but then we'll have just hang out and get to know what everybody's going to be doing in the summer and things of that kind. So that's April 28th on a Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. Okay, remember those two things. Now I will very much like to introduce today's speaker. We have someone from our own state here in Washington. The speaker is Elizabeth King, Ellie, and she will be sharing with us today something around energy security. Ellie is the Director for Energy Resilience and Emergency Management Office with the Washington State Department of Commerce. That office is abbreviated EREMO, and I'm going to call it ERMO. It sounds like Elmo. If it is pronounced differently out there in Olympia, Ellie will tell us. But she's a director for that office, and she does oversee a number of programs there: energy, emergency operations, resilience and mitigation planning, liquid fuels, resiliency program, and energy safety, and a number of other things too. And some of these things are very exciting to hear about. But what she will be focusing today on talking about is securing Washington state energy critical infrastructure, and the security connection comes in there. And we have tried everything, and I think it is going to work just fine. So Ellie, if you would share your screen and get started, that will be wonderful. You guys know the drill. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and we will monitor and have time towards the end, generous time, and you can get your questions answered, or you can pose your questions at that time when that time comes. And you would also be prompted when there will be time to fill in surveys like you usually do at every seminar. So thank you very much again, Ellie, for taking the time to share with us today. So go ahead and get started.
Thanks so much. Thanks, James, for the opportunity to join your spring seminar sessions on cybersecurity. My name is Elizabeth King. I'm the Director of the Energy Resilience and Emergency Management Office here at the Department of Commerce. A lot of people ask, well, why do you work at the Department of Commerce, or how did this function become at the Department of Commerce? And the fun fact is that sometime in the 90s, our legislative body decided that we did not need a state energy office. And so they divided up the roles and responsibilities of what the state energy office did amongst other state agencies. And this function ended up at Commerce. So that's why I'm here. For those of you who are not familiar with Commerce, our agency is committed to strengthening community resilience, and the connection with securing critical infrastructure is fundamental not only for ensuring community resilience, but resilience for our entire state. My office, EREMO or ERMO, depending on how you like to sound out an acronym or turn it into a word, doesn't matter to me. We have 3 different lines of effort within the office. We have our energy resilience and mitigation. This covers an energy resilience technical assistance program that we work with small communities ranging from school districts to nonprofits such as food banks to help them meet their energy resilience goals. We also provide technical assistance to small electric utilities for wildfire mitigation planning and grid resilience activities as well. So hardening the grid, working on quicker restoration for outages and that sort of thing. We have our emergency response operations, planning, training, and exercise, which is a traditional emergency management function. This is just focused on the energy sector. And then we have the energy, physical, and cybersecurity program. That specifically right now is targeted more specifically on small electric utilities that do not have to comply with NERC-CIP, which is the North American Regulatory North American Electric Reliability Corporation. Sorry, too many acronyms right now. And they have to comply with NERC-CIP, so cybersecurity and physical security standards. But the majority of our electric distribution providers don't have to comply. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Our mission really is to provide comprehensive and sustainable emergency management, resilience development, and cybersecurity services. We do a lot of other things, but at the core, that is what our office is here for. We work with the electric sector, which includes everything from generation, storage, transmission, and distribution. The petroleum industry, from refining all the way down to the end user, and natural gas, imports and end users, and the alternative fuel sector, which continues to grow in complexity within Washington State with EV charging, compressed natural gas, biofuels, SAF, alternative aviation fuels, and then the potential exploration into hydrogen as well. Our strategic priorities through 2030 is very simple at the onset, but building energy resilient communities, a robust energy emergency response capability, and then working across all of our stakeholders for a collaborative environment. What I like to tell my team that work for me is that this is a team sport. We can't do this alone. Private sector can't do this alone. Our public power partners can't do this alone. It's going to take all of us. So we'll get into a bit of the interdependencies around critical infrastructure. So what is critical infrastructure is a question I get asked a lot from people who are not familiar with it. So the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has identified 16 different critical infrastructure sectors whose assets, systems, and networks, whether physical or virtual, are considered so vital to the U.S. that the harm or destruction would have a debilitating effect on security, national economic security, national public health, or safety. Essentially, critical infrastructure is the web of systems that our modern-day society depends upon, from financial services to the transportation system. Our nation's critical infrastructure is deeply woven into the way we live, work, and play. The goal of our office is to understand the systems and interdependencies that make everyday life work so seamlessly so that we can support industry in protecting them from attacks, equipment failure, or natural disasters. Critical energy infrastructure is identified by the Department of Homeland Security as being uniquely critical because it provides an enabling function across all critical infrastructure sectors, meaning all of the other 15 sectors have an interdependence on energy systems. If you think about what you go throughout your day, how much of that is dependent upon having a reliable source of energy, whatever that energy source is. More than 80% of the country's energy infrastructure is owned and operated by the private sector, supplying fuels for transportation industry, electricity to households and businesses, and other sources of energy that are integral to our economy. Attacks on critical energy infrastructure is not a new thing. It happens daily, happens every minute. But when you talk about what is an attack, it depends on who you're actually talking to. There are indicators of compromise. There are successful data exfiltration. There's successful physical security attacks. But it all depends on how the reporting entity categorizes them. These threats that are on here can be from cybersecurity attacks by countries or criminal gangs, and or physical attacks that are by terrorists, domestic or foreign, and vandals on utilities or power plants. While most of the examples that I have here did not actually occur in Washington state, we're not immune to those risks and have seen similar and increasing attacks here locally. Crash Override was a cyber security attack that happened in Ukraine in 2015. And many questions have been asked. Would NERC-CIP have prevented that? And the answer is maybe, but because of how Crash Override was attacked, it actually didn't attack the bulk electric system for Ukraine. It was really focused and targeted at the distribution system, which for us here in the United States and North America does not fall underneath the NERC-CIP, except for a few exceptions. So when people ask, well, doesn't NERC-CIP cover everything? The answer is maybe, but not. It really depends. And so that's part of the education that I have been working on for the last 6 years here in Washington state. The industry and the North American Electric Reliability Corporation have been tracking the trends and reports on attacks on the energy sector, and they've accounted that it's doubled every year since 2020. Documented upticks in ballistic or gun damage, intrusion, tampering, and vandalism incidents have also driven the increase in grid impacts incidents since 2021. The grid impact means there was actual disruptions to customers, not just physical damage. Specifically in the fall and winter of 2022 here in Washington state, the electric grid was physically attacked at least 6 times in Oregon and Western Washington, impacting 4 different electric utilities, and some of the attacks were caused by gun damage, forced entry and sabotage, and setting fires. The majority of these attacks caused power disruptions directly to customers. If you lived in Western Washington, specifically in Pierce County, on Christmas Day in 2022, a lot of people experienced a power outage because that is when the majority of the attacks occurred, or the largest attacks in those series occurred. As previously mentioned, the energy sector is uniquely critical. The image on the right depicts some of the interconnectedness across sectors that we rely on every day. There are even interdependencies within the energy sector, which is one reason here in Washington we're inclusive of the definition of critical energy infrastructure to mean not only electric, but also natural gas and petroleum. In 2023, the legislature passed House Bill or Senate Bill 5518. This bill directly updated the RCW that I'm responsible for implementing for the Department of Commerce. The language includes securing energy infrastructure against all physical and cybersecurity threats. This change was our first step in addressing the increasing concerns of protecting critical energy infrastructure, specifically against cyber and physical security. While most people actually do not know that our office exists, a lot of our partners do know. And so I'll give you a brief overview of what we're working on currently here in Washington. Washington State is the first state to have a dedicated program focused on critical energy infrastructure and cyber and physical security planning, training, and exercises, specifically response coordination with our industry partners. Other states do also have this function as a requirement, but they don't necessarily have a dedicated program with dedicated FTEs or staff time. It is usually absorbed as part of their role, and they're not necessarily able to dedicate as much time or funding or effort at the state level. I want to note that over the last decade, many coordination efforts on improving cybersecurity and physical security have been focused at the national level. Over the course of the last 3 to 4 months, the focus has shifted to be more resourced at the state level, which gives us a bit of an advantage because we already have one person dedicated to doing this work within my office. In the state, we will need to increase our participation in cyber and physical security efforts for EV charging, funding for small, rural, and distribution-only utilities, and distributed energy resources, which DERs cover a vast array of technology that the state is supporting utilities and others to adopt. Our office is also going to launch a brand new program this summer. It is called the Washington Cybersecurity Coalition for Energy Security, or WACIFERS. It'll be a community of practice. This has been a request that we've had for the last couple of years, especially for our small utilities who have small cybersecurity shops, maybe one person who does OT, and maybe one person who does IT, or one person who does IT and OT. So we are trying to establish a community of practice where there are Chatham House rules. So nothing would be recorded, no notes taken, but it would give our partners the opportunity to discuss sensitive information, strategies, tactics on how to actually protect their systems. It will also increase and improve information sharing to protect critical energy infrastructure information. And the hope is to actually prevent cyber or physical security attacks. Our current and ongoing activities is we will be participating in NERC's GridX exercise this fall with our electric utilities. So if you're not familiar with GridX, it's a large exercise that occurs every other year. It's sponsored by the EISAC, and it is nationwide. So our electric utilities will participate at a state level, but they will also participate at a regional level. So it'd be the Western Electric Coordinating Council, which covers the majority of the West Coast. We've been participating in this exercise in some form or fashion, whether it's a large component to the exercise for the Western states or a smaller component where we are working directly with individual utilities on their information sharing and response and coordination and requesting for additional resources or assets. Over the last 2 years, we've actively engaged at the national level on cybersecurity best practices for solar and EV charging infrastructure, specifically on establishing baselines for electric distribution and DER resources. We'll continue to work with the public and private sector to engage partners and other key stakeholders on protecting critical energy infrastructure and energy infrastructure information. I introduced or had what we call an agency request legislation during this session that's currently wrapping up to specifically have a call out or an exemption in our Public Records Act for critical energy infrastructure information. It was not successful this session, but it did pass the House, so it will come back during the supplemental session. So there's a lot of work that I have to do during the summer and the fall before next session starts, and hopefully we will be able to make more progress and more headway. That way we can actually share information or receive information from our energy partners and then be able to protect it. Not just us, but also the Washington State Fusion Center, which is the coordination location for state, local, and federal law enforcement. Our state patrol manages it, and so they also fall underneath the same Public Records Act. But there's a lot of work happening in this space. We are doing our due diligence with the resources that we have available to make a concerted effort here at the state. I think if y'all have any questions, happy to answer them the best I can.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ellie. Very informative set of slides and nice presentation. The floor is open for questions. If you have a question, you can just unmute yourselves and ask. If you feel comfortable doing by writing, you can also put them in the chat, but I would encourage you to just go ahead and ask.
Yeah, hi, Ellie. James here. Thanks so much for coming and giving this talk. I have a few questions, I guess. We'll see if anyone else pipes up in chat or not. But first off, are you doing any hiring in your office? Do you have any internship or employment opportunities for cybersecurity graduates or students?
Currently not doing any hiring because the state's in a hiring freeze. Yes, but internships, we do have an application on our website, I think, that's still open. It would be an unpaid internship, but we could do something for credit working with a higher institution. I've done that before with Western Washington.
Okay, cool. Do you have a URL you could throw in the chat for that? Or if you know off the top of your head what it is?
I will see if I can quickly find it while we're here.
Something else I was wondering about was kind of towards the beginning of the talk, you mentioned people going around and, I don't know, was it physically attacking power grid nodes, I don't know, substations or something in Washington? Was there any like follow up to that? Does anyone know any of the how they were doing it or the why or who it was?
Well, it became a federal investigation. And so that concluded, they took a plea deal, so it didn't actually have to go to court. So I'd have to remember exactly how that turned out. They do know how they were getting in and what they were attacking, and I can't share that because that is critical energy infrastructure information, and we don't want to have any copycats. But the motivations were not what you think. It was what the investigation brought up was that they were trying to cause power outages to go rob something.
Oh, okay.
Which seems a little fishy because it was in the same time frame as the North Carolina attacks on the substation, which had very similar markers. But I'm not a law enforcement person, so just reading between the lines, it is something that we pay attention to and track, regardless of what the outcome is.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Thanks. The last thing I was wondering is, in Washington State, what are some of the privately owned types of power producers? I don't know, solar, hydro, or whatever. People at home with solar powers on the roofs. What is that like? What is that in Washington, and what are some of the risks that might have been identified for those?
So we have a variety of structures within the state. So we have several independent power producers. So as you specifically over in Eastern Washington, I'm sure you can see them. You might not know what they are, but you can see them. But there's windmill farms and solar array farms. Some of those are actually owned and operated by an independent power producer, and utilities would actually just purchase the energy that's generated. from those locations. And so it's just a bit, the market is very challenging on generation in Washington, because the majority of our generation is actually from hydroelectric dams that are managed and operated by the Bureau of Reclamation and the Bonneville Power Administration. And then we do have some other utilities, privately owned and publicly owned, that have their own hydroelectric dams for power generation as well. We do have, I think, one coal plant that is set to close later this year or early next year. And then we do have some natural gas plants that supplement power generation and helps with black start restoration. So I think that's one part of your question. The risks associated, there are many risks associated, from natural hazards to human caused hazards. Droughts, climate change, extreme weather definitely is included in that, risks associated. Physical and cyber security attacks also. The Grand Coulee Dam on occasion has drone operators that like to fly over that. That's a risk, even though if they might be hobbyists, it's still critical infrastructure. So if you've got a drone, just be mindful of where you're flying and what restrictions exist. And I don't know whether I can't remember the rest of the parts of your questions.
No, that was it.
Sorry.
What kind of power we're producing? What are the risks? So yeah, thank you.
I'll follow up on James's question about internships and hirings at the Washington State Department of Commerce. And we totally understand that there is a freeze now, but generally, I think for our students, both of those things are of interest. Internships are required things to do within CISR, and we usually tell them there are some competitive internship opportunities through Viceroy, which is the national program that CISR belongs to, and it's usually within the DoD space, and they would go out to New York, in Rome for the summer for internship, 10 weeks internship, or 8 weeks, I should say. And when that is not possible, then the other students inside there, we let them know that they could look for internships anywhere else, as long as there is cybersecurity connection. So it would be good to know, not necessarily right now, but generally speaking for students, it would be good to know of those opportunities. And the way I understood you answered that question, it's not paid, and that might work in some cases, but has it been like that all the time, or is this your policy in a way where internships are unpaid? Is this right now, or is it like always?
Not always,
Okay.
is the best answer I can give you.
Okay.
It really depends on what funding is available that we have.
Okay.
Because Commerce actually started the first internship program that they had, and so we've gone through the development of how we can actually hire an intern versus just having them as a volunteer position. So progress has happened over the last 6 years.
Okay.
And then the other ways that we have actually gotten interns is through what is called the Civic Spark program. It's very similar to AmeriCorps. We've gotten mostly folks who are interested in energy policy, not necessarily cybersecurity, through that effort. So those are the two options that we're looking at or have looked at historically. But right now, it really kind of just depends upon funding on what we can offer.
Okay. The other thing, again, related with that is we at WSU, we have a new program that's funded by National Science Foundation called CyberCorps, Scholarship for Service. This is going to, our first cohort is going to come in the fall now, and we will have the program running for 5 years from then. And we currently, today happens to be another deadline for students who are interested in applying for that. That's when they would apply. But when it gets launched in fall, there will be students similar to our CISR students now, but with a slightly different kind of arrangement where they would receive scholarship, tuition, and stipend while they study. And in return, they would work for the government. That's where the service part comes in, scholarship for service. And we're very happy, excited about having that program. And because of that obligation to work for government, the state, local, or federal, any of these things are fine. And so they have a list of agencies that qualify and the kind of jobs that they would qualify for. And it's all in cybersecurity. And we have our computer science, cybersecurity, software engineering, and so on majors eligible for that as long as they take enough cybersecurity courses, and even our electrical engineering students who may be interested in energy policy. So again, looking not just internships, but what is like the prospect, the way you see it now. And I don't want it to be blurred too much by what is happening now, but would you advocate for Department of Commerce to work for? Is this like a great place to work, or what would you share with students in that front if they were to be in this program?
Definitely would advocate for it. I've been working with the state legislature on how to improve workforce within the state. So trying to figure out a really good pipeline from education into the energy sector, specifically around cybersecurity. Because right now, like the workforce in general, not necessarily working for the state. So like if there's an eligible government entity, it could be like a public utility district or a municipality, becoming a bit more familiar on the energy side of what the cybersecurity risks or concerns are, and just becoming a bit more familiar. Right now, the industry is actually going through a transition in terms of cybersecurity standards and requirements for those who have to comply with that. The process called virtualization. So every standard that exists now through NERC-CIP is actually going through a complete and fundamental review, and will have brand new requirements to address virtualization, moving things to the cloud, not necessarily just having on-prem data centers and that sort of thing. So just becoming more familiar with that. And then I know many of at least our medium to large utilities will more than likely be hiring in the near-ish future, next 6 months to longer, to help with those transitions, if that's what they're planning on doing. Also with increasing or modernizing their IT environments, not just OT environments. I think we all saw the fallout of CrowdStrike. So there's been a lot of transition away from a single source. And so there's more diversification. So becoming a bit more familiar and aware of what those are.
That's great. Great to hear. Anybody's got questions? By now, you must have come up with a question or two to ask. So I'm watching the chat. There isn't much, but feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Well, if there's no questions, that's okay too. Other resources that y'all can go look at to learn more about ICS environments, industrial control systems, and SCADA. SANS is a really great place to go. The training is real expensive, but they do have some online free options. And then Dragos also has a lot of reports and white papers that document after action incidences around cybersecurity, specifically around the energy infrastructure.
That's great. Thanks for pointing that out. So we would be asking you, Ellie, if you are okay with it, to send us PDFs of your slides so we can post them on the website, if that's okay with you. That's what we do all the time for all our speakers. And we've recorded this and we'll post the recording also on that same website. As sometimes students are not able to attend live, so they get a chance to watch. Or if they have attended a seminar and they want to go back and look at some things, that would be a great resource to have. And so right away when you're off this call, you can email me and James, and we'll make sure to put it on the website. James has put the link for the survey, so take the time to fill that out so we know you were here and you give us feedback. That would be wonderful. Other than that, I really appreciate you taking the time, Ellie, once again, to come and share. And you also helped us finish early. I can tell you how grateful the students would be to get a little extra time. And so we'll be in touch in future events, and good luck with what you'll be doing in the summer. I have heard you say you have a lot to do for this fall to get these policies and other things to go in. So all the best there, and thank you again. And have a great day, the rest of you all.
Thank you so much, and I've gotten pretty good at speaking quite quickly because of the legislative session. So.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Right.